Hey, it's Jeff Sauer here, and in this video, we are going to talk about Revenue Planning 101 for your agency or freelancing business. Now, when it comes to revenue planning, the first thing we want to talk about is how do you know if revenue is coming in the door or not? Generally speaking, if you're first getting started, you might sign a contract or you might have some kind of agreement with somebody, and that might be your only client. And so the way that you plan for that revenue is that whatever they tell you that they're going to pay you is the amount of money of revenue you have coming in. And it's easy if you have some kind of recurring payment system or some way that they're going to pay you over and over again. It gets a lot more difficult if it's sporadic or if you're doing things based on a project basis. And so this is why starting your own business can be difficult, it can be scary, and there's a lot of unknowns. And so I would generally recommend, before you even start your business, have some kind of revenue lined up. And not only have revenue lined up, but try to come up with some kind of contract or at least formal agreement saying that you are going to do this work for somebody and they are going to pay you for it. Because that way you have some kind of certainty in your revenue. And as you progress in your business, this problem doesn't really go away. You're always going to want to know how much revenue you have that fits into your plan so you can know all kinds of answers about your business. You're going to want to know whether or not you can hire employees. You're going to want to know whether you can pay yourself or if there's going to be any profit left over at the end of the year. So as things get more formalized, as your business starts to take shape, revenue planning takes its own form. Instead of just saying, hey, give me a contract for this one project we have. If you have multiple clients, you're going to want to have contracts, you're going to want to have agreements with all of them, and you're going to want to build up to the point where you have a repository and even a tracking spreadsheet to say, here's where we think that revenue is coming in from. And a lot of companies, what they'll do is they'll project this in a financial statement or in a budget statement that says, here's where we think that revenue is coming in, and here's our plan for it. Now, the reason why this is really nice to have, this whole revenue projection and revenue planning process, is because then you can make decisions about the rest of the aspects of your business. A lot of times, the biggest concern we have as business owners is whether or not we should expand, whether or not we can afford to expand, or whether or not we even want to expand. Is it a good idea or not? Well, when I talk about expansion, it could be expanding into new markets, it could be going after new clients, or it means hiring employees, making it official, having people who are on your team that you build out with your organization. Well, when you're hiring employees, it's a big consideration, and the biggest one is, can you pay them? And it's not just can you pay them tomorrow. I think anybody who has a little bit of money in the bank can pay the employee for their first paycheck, but can you pay them 6 months from now, 12 months from now, whatever that number is, you need to determine if you can continue to afford to pay them over time. And that's a big consideration to make. Now, what I recommend doing is projecting out your revenue for as long as you can into the future, for 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, at least through the end of the current year, you should be projecting out your revenue for your business. And then compare what you would have to pay an employee, not just their salary, but also their benefits and the expenses that goes along with bringing somebody on board, and then make a determination as to whether or not the revenue coming in the door is going to be able to afford them over time. So you're basically projecting that expense against revenue. And that's really what revenue planning is. And this is the most basic thing we can do with our business, is plan as to when the revenue is coming, whether or not we have the cash on hand in order to bring somebody on board, whether we foresee that there's going to be a deficit between our cash and the amount of money we owe, our debts, or if we're going to have things in the clear. And the more that you are able to project this out, the more comfortable you are with taking on risk in your business. Now, the business owners who are not prepared to take on risk are the ones who don't understand where things are coming from in their business. So the more information you have, the more powerful it can be to understand where your risks are coming from and where the reward's going to be in your business. Because the funny thing is, not everything's a risk. Sometimes the numbers tell you that you have enough revenue to pay somebody for the next 6 months, the next 12 months, and you really don't have a lot of risk in your business. Well, you wouldn't know that if you were just guessing. If you were just hoping that somebody would sign a contract or hoping that your clients continue to pay you on time, that's not going to last very long. That gets a little bit out of hand really quickly. And so what you need to do is you need to be able to project these things out. So to summarize Revenue Planning 101, you need to project out your income for the next 12 months or even longer, or at least through the end of this current year. You need to project out what your expenses are going to be, both your current expenses and anticipated expenses if you think you're going to hire an employee or bring somebody on board. You should also project out sales in your pipeline. Whether or not those sales have closed or not, doesn't matter. Give them some kind of value and put them into your revenue column. Make sure that your expenses are tight and that you have them there, and then you can determine whether or not you're going to have profit both on a monthly basis as well as on an annual basis when all is said and done. That's really what it comes down to from a revenue planning perspective. You need to have income greater than your expenses, and you need to plan for profit. Now, the reason why companies don't have a lot of profits when they're first getting started is because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know where the future is going to hold. But you can still do this process, and you can still get an idea as to where your business is going, whether it's healthy or not, and if there's going to be profit left over at the end of the year, or at least if there's enough money to pay yourself and your employees at the end of the year. So hopefully you enjoyed this view into Revenue Planning 101. It's the very basic parts of how do you plan for revenue in your business. And we talked about some techniques and some tools that maybe you've never heard of before. And if you want to learn more, make sure you check out the Agency Sage blog as well as agencycourse.com.